again, and I know this video is about Varroxsan, but I wanted to share a little bit about what's going on with the honey extractor back here. So I will have some honey available for sale. If you are a paid subscriber of my Substack, sorry, there's like a bug over here. If you're a paid subscriber on my Substack, you get the honey order form 2 days before it opens to the public. And also, if you're new here, you may not know that my honey usually sells out in about 12 hours, sometimes within 2 to 3 days, but generally very, very quickly. I did have the largest honey harvest I've ever had, but then I lost half of my harvest, which I'll share about in another video or two. But I will have that order form going up. I'll link in the description, probably targeting around August 1st. But I'm also linking to my Honey Updates newsletter, so that if you subscribe, I will tell you when you'll receive the honey order form, and then I also give you a little heads up that it's live. So it's a nice way of getting that update in real time. And I don't send updates weekly or monthly or anything like that. It truly is just when the honey harvest is happening. So you can see that bag hanging in the tree with all of the bees cleaning it. They're coming to check me out. I think I've got some honey on my arm from hauling all this out here. And this is a chicken tractor on the right that I was planning on using to separate some of my quail for the next incubator, but we've been having a ton of snakes, and snakes aren't a big deal with the chickens, but the one that came last weekend killed 3 of my quail. They were the new baby chicks that were out there, so I just don't want to lose any more quail this year, so I'm just going to keep them where they are. Now we have, thanks to our pet sitter, some snake repellent out there too, which has like a cinnamon base. I'll see how effective that is. I wanted to step away from the extractor over there, not only because the bees are going nuts, but also I was next to the air conditioning unit, so I don't think the sound was going to be very good. I am sharing a little bit about my experience with Varroxsan. This is the first year that I used it. Before we go in the hives, and before I tell you a little bit about the challenge I had in kind of like managing the product, I wanted to share that for me to share if the Varroxsan was effective is going to be a little tricky, because I don't know if I've shared this in earlier videos, but I do not do mite counts. I know this disgruntles a lot of folks. I stopped doing mite counts a few years ago, specifically because I found them ineffective. I had really low to no mite numbers. I did alcohol washes. I spent a lot of time and sweat and labor in getting those mite counts routinely that year, and I lost 2 or 3 hives that fall due to mite pressure. Like, once they had died out, there were enormous amounts of mites. So I don't really trust the washes and those counts. I use screened bottom boards at this apiary here, which if you're new to following, I have bees here in Pittsburgh, which is just south of Chapel Hill, and I also have an apiary near Bryson City in western North Carolina. I mainly have solid bottom boards out there, but from what I understand, I've heard that by having screened bottom boards, you reduce your mite numbers by 10 to 30%. Just right off the bat. So doing that, plus a lot of other management practices with brood breaks and things, but no chemicals. With the Varroxsan, as far as like, is it effective? It's more of, is this going to be a big labor intensive thing? Is it going to be expensive? And any other logistical challenges with it. So I'll talk about some of those logistical things in a moment. And then the thing that I didn't mention when going in the hives, which you'll see, I didn't follow the instructions totally, where I didn't wear any type of mask or like respiratory kind of protection. And just by handling the Varroxsan strips like while wearing gloves and getting them in the hives, I had a really, really bad headache both days that I applied it to the hives here. I don't get headaches easily, so for me to have a headache is a big thing. So that was like one thing that in other treatments don't have to deal with. Other than that, I will let you go to the rest of the video where I'll share a little bit about those logistical challenges, as well as what it was like moving them from the colonies as well. So we'll take a peek at that. On the topic of natural beekeeping, I speak to a lot of beekeeping clubs about this topic and how it's interpreted in many different ways. I manage my hives without the use of chemicals, and this year I am trying out Varroxsan for the first time. So if you're not familiar with Varroxsan, inside this package are a bunch of strips. They have a slow release application of oxalic acid, which is an organic compound. And I also have this big pack. So I've already used one of these packs. This has 60 sheets in it. And it's a really simple application. It can be used in whatever temperatures, which is really important here in the South because you get limited options in the heat of the summer. It's fairly simple. There, you put in about 4 strips for each brood box. So they base it on a frame of bees. So you don't do a strip for every 2 frames of brood, you do it for every 2 frames of bees. So basically every other frame you're gonna fold that strip over it, and I'll show you what it looks like when I've put it in the hives. What I've liked about it so far, and this, I won't really know, if it's effective for a bit, but at least so far it is really easy to apply. I just opened the package and, placed it in each box. The things that are a bit of a drawback so far is that you have to get down to every single box. So if you've got a really monster hive, you need to have the time and the weather to cooperate to break down that box to the first one and then continue on. So what I've liked about ApiGuard is you could just put it on the very top and you're done and you've applied it to the hive. And similarly with doing an oxalic acid vaporization, you have that dedicated time up front, but then your treatment is totally done. So you don't have any of that upkeep with it. The other thing that has been a bit of a challenge, but it's kind of a learning process, is like I had showed you, I had purchased this large 60 pack. So in my mind, when I purchased this, which was approximately $100 or so, is that I'm like, okay, if I'm doing 4 strips per box and I'm thinking of the number of hives that I have and the number of brood boxes, I figured that should pretty much take care of all of my hives. So I've got a little over a dozen hives right now. And then as I was getting into this the other day and actually putting them in the hives for the first time, I was really closely reading the instructions, and I saw that once you open this package, you have to use everything. Like, you can't store it. It says not to put it in the freezer. So that is a bit of a challenge because I wasn't planning on treating all of the hives at the same time. I was going to kind of stagger them and just base it on population size and weather, when I'm in town or not, and just, all different variables. So once I treated one hive which really needed it, and I'll share a bit more about what that hive is experiencing shortly. But then I was like, okay, now I need to use this up because I didn't want to spend $100 and miss out on this whole pack of Varroxsan. I went through pretty much almost all my colonies so far, and I've been applying the strips pretty much to almost everyone at this point. But I had just a few strips left of that packet and not enough to treat an entire colony. So that's why I purchased this little one. So this is 20 strips. And so I believe, based on the 2 colonies basically that are left that I haven't applied the treatment in, that should be enough. And then I'm actually going to take this larger pack to my Western North Carolina apiary, and I plan to use it out there, but I actually don't think this is going to be enough. As I was driving home, I'm like, I think I'm going to need more because I feel like the hives out there are larger, and that means I would need more than what I've used here. So I have to just figure that part out. Because the strips can't be stored in like a hot place, and this time of the year it gets really, really hot, I intentionally wanted to pick it up at a beekeeping store and not purchase it to have it shipped because I didn't want it sitting out on the porch in the sun or sitting out in the mailbox baking out there and becoming ineffective. So just keep that in mind too about how you're sourcing it to make sure that it's, going to be as effective as possible.
And here you can see I got the Varroxsan strips in, and it's every other frame of bees and just in the brood box, and I'm starting in the very bottom box and working my way up.
Gone through a full cycle with the Varroxsan treatment, and I'll show you a little bit of what I'm thinking here of all different factors related to it. So down here, you can see the strips have been in here for, I think, 54 days or so, whatever the manufacturer guidance says. What I'm noticing, and I'll flip this around to show you, is one, it's not as easy as removing the treatment like Apiguard is, where you can just open up the top cover, remove it, you're done. You have to go through every single box. You have to go every other frame, remove it. It's not just coming out in one piece in every instance. It kind of disintegrates, the bees have chewed on it. So in this heat and at the peak population, really not my top choice. I could see this being really good treatment in the spring when I'm going through box by box more frequently, but I'll show you how it's kind of falling apart. Now these look like they're in pretty good shape. This one looks like it may have already been chewed through, but I've had to kind of take them out piece by piece. What I've been doing is, like what I'll do right now, I'm not going to do it with one hand though, is I'll remove this frame and then just kind of jiggle out the others. And then if I need to, I'll move the frames over. I'm trying to disrupt them as little as possible, especially it's morning of a day, it's going to reach 100 degrees, so I don't want them, I'm already disrupting the temperature in the brood nest, which I don't really want to do on this in this really difficult weather. But so far, what I like to do in the summer in general, so I'm just kind of practicing it with removing the Varroxsan, is if I do need to do a full inspection, I start in the very bottom box. And that way, I get a feel for the temperament. So by the time you open it or so, if they're going to be too cranky, it may not be worth going into it that day. But also, it lets me see how that lower brood nest is. Really not getting close to a point where I'm gonna at least rotate the more empty frames up above the brood nest. We're getting close. Not totally there yet, but yeah, that kind of gives me an idea, and it also lets me see what kind of like hive beetle population. You can see they've got the hive beetles in their propolis here. I leave that as is. I did kill 3 small hive beetles on the inner cover, and so what I'm also doing at this point is I'm adding the peppermint candies to the corners of each box. So starting at the bottom allows me to just layer that up. So I'm doing that too. And just as I suspected, this one was kind of broken, so I had to kind of take it out in probably 5 different pieces. The other thing I've just learned that I don't really like about them is that underneath this one was a little small hive beetle hotel. So it is giving them more places to get away from the bees. I added the peppermint candies. I don't necessarily apply it in the corners, like if they're all grouped back there. I just get close enough. Don't really want to disrupt them. Plus, sometimes there's a bit of a gap, and that could just all fall all the way down, and I want to make sure it's being applied to every box. The other thing that, I don't know if I mentioned it in an earlier video that I may have recorded when I was applying the Varroxsan, is that it makes me really nervous, or it made me really nervous when I was applying the Varroxsan, because I didn't want to hurt the queen. Because you're kind of like putting it in there and just kind of being really gentle, and like, what if she's on the frame and you hurt her, or worse. So that's another thing. I feel like although it's simple in some ways, it's kind of invasive and a lot more labor intensive. Just noticing like the difference between these workers. They are so pretty, such different colors. Really cool. This is actually a colony that has one of my oldest queens. She's 3 years old. She's doing really well. She is my oldest queen here at this apiary in Pittsburgh. And I've been considering making some nukes with her, but I really just don't want more to manage right now. But I noticed they made a lot of queen cups in here. None have eggs in them. So perhaps this might be her last season. We'll see. It is unreal how much I'm sweating. So just standing in the shade for a moment. So everything's all closed up. One of the things that I'm doing right now, I haven't seen as much activity in this apiary as I have in my mountain one, but what I'm doing is I'm closing the robbing screens down here and opening just the smallest entrance. I usually do this right after extracting, but I didn't really see a need to. Do not want to hurt the little bee as it's coming out. So yeah, doing that now as a preventative. All of these colonies have screened bottom boards, so they've got some good ventilation. I usually close the back entrance, but with the heat, I am leaving them open just to help them keep cool. And speaking of keep cool, I need to go take a very cold shower because it's way too hot right now.
Thanks for watching.
I'll share more next time.